Hi, welcome to the Neshamos podcast. We at Neshamos are on a mission to promote mental and emotional health within our community. Among the many ways we do this is by empowerment through education. This podcast is where we get to listen to personal experiences of those who have been affected by mental illness, the pain, the struggle to get better, and today, by the grace of God, have emerged with a message of hope and healing. My name is Moishe. I am a grateful addict in recovery, and I am a certified life and addiction recovery coach. I'm here to encourage vulnerability and allow for hope to emerge from the internal journeys we share. Please join me, hear the stories of these heroes, and know that you are not alone. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Neshamos podcast, hosted by yours truly, Moishe. And today we have a guest, Yosef Eichenblatt, a good old friend of mine. And after a good couple of conversations, I realized Yosef is definitely a great candidate, and he has a story that's worth sharing. So I bring him to you today. I could get into the history of how I met Yosef, but I think let's just jump right in and see if we can cover that within our conversation. So welcome, Yosef.
Thank you, Moishe. So excited to be here with you. Love talking to you as always. And thanks for this opportunity to help and to share.
You're very welcome. So what I would love to start off with is if you can just give us a picture. We want to earn the listeners' trust and give them a picture of what things were like when you were growing up, kind of like what your household was like, to give people a picture of what was life like so they can then begin identifying. Go ahead, man.
Well, I grew up in Los Angeles, California, in a Baal Tshuva Chabad home. Very fond memories of my childhood and a good upbringing. Lots of good friends, lots of excitement always around. Pretty normal standard upbringing, I would say.
Awesome. Is there anything that you would say would be significant that would have begun your journey that happened at home?
At home, no. My father is a trained psychologist. He learns a lot of Torah and Chassidus, as does my mother. My mother runs an organization called Beis Chana, women's yeshiva, Beis Chana women's group organization in California, and so I always felt very empowered as a child in terms of, I just always had this feeling that, I could do and be, I could do anything I wanted to do in terms of doing big things in life. And, that comes, I think it came from a mixture of my home. And I think it also came from a mixture of the Chabad upbringing as well. We're told if you see a problem in the world, change it. You be the change you want to see in the world. So nothing, my home was a very good home. My parents were loving and kind. My brothers were amazing, were an amazing sense of confidence for me. And still till today, when I'm around them, I feel like I could do anything I want and be anything I want. So the only thing I would say is that, growing up in a boys' school, there always is a certain amount of bullying. I bullied people, which I'm not proud of, and I was bullied. I was very friendly with everybody in my class, but there were some kids in the community, and there were some kids in the class above me that did bully me, and it wasn't anything major. It wasn't anything to get too excited about, but there were times that I did feel less than or not good enough, and I think I did carry those feelings on to later parts of my life. I remember, So, but nothing out of the ordinary, I wouldn't say.
Okay. Yeah, I like to ask that type of question simply because, really what the question that comes up for me, which I'm thinking that might be a question that a listener will ask, is like, everything was fine. Why am I even listening to this? Where's the horror in this story? Like, where does it begin? I thought that only um, alcoholics or addicts or mental illness comes from broken homes. So why am I listening to this? So I guess I'll bring that to the next question: is if you can describe to me, because I know that your story has alcohol and other substances, but I wanted to know, like, when do you feel like your journey with that begun? Yeah.
So I remember my first drink. It was in somebody's Shabbos table, and I would just turn bar mitzvah, and I had a drink. They wanted to offer me a drink. My father said no. They convinced I had a drink. And I remember it was just something that I knew that I wanted to do. And probably because growing up, you see all the adults and all the bachurim and all the people around you that they're always having so much fun drinking this drink. And it just seemed very appealing to me. And I knew that there was something that I wanted to do. I didn't like the taste of it, but so alcohol just started out for me in yeshiva, for Branians. I wasn't allowed to drink at home, and for Branians were in high school in ninth grade. We used to have Thursday night for Branians every week. There was Shabbos for Branians. There was Yom Pagros, and as the years went on, there was Ben Hashmashes and more occasions to drink, and going to shul, Simchas Torah. There was alcohol for days and days, and it just seemed like the thing to do. And once I started drinking it, it was like just had so much fun. It was like it let me loose, and it was just so fun and exciting, and just wanted to do more and more of it. So it just started out as something that was fun. Why not? And it ended up at the end to be something very different for me.
Did you ever have any consequences from your drinking in the early years?
So I remember the first time I got really drunk was or one of the first times was just getting very, very sick after drinking. It was at Farbrengen when I went to yeshiva in a New York yeshiva outside of the city of New York. The Rosh Yeshiva was there at the Farbrengen, and he says, Yosef, say l'chaim, say l'chaim, say l'chaim. And he kept on having me drink. And I got so sick. I was like, no, I don't want to ever do this again. But a few weeks later, I was drunk again. So I would get violently sick, and as I got older, I remember 18, going to Israel, getting very, very sick, vomiting. But again, vomit, you get sick, you rest, and a few days later you're drinking again. But and that's also where marijuana eventually came into my life at a later stage, probably at around 20 years old. You could get drunk or get high without having to have the consequence of getting sick. So that was something that was very appealing for me. My parents were on my case. There was consequences for my parents. They didn't want me drinking. They identified problems in my drinking, and they would want me to read literature about what alcohol does to you, and I would fight very strongly against that. My mother, when I was 17 years old, my mother told me I was an alcoholic, and I just thought they were crazy. They were parents just trying to, they were joy kills, just trying to suck all the fun out of life and take away, the fun that I was trying to have. And I do till today have health issues because of my drinking. I had a ulcer, and which came to create other issues, and I have to take medication for it, and there are some health issues that I still have because of it. But I don't think my drinking was very, very different than the people that I was around, at least. I it wasn't extremely different. I wasn't the biggest drinker, you know, but the way that it affected me in the long run, or what happened to me as after I drank is what makes me an alcoholic in the definition of the leading organization on alcoholism.
Okay. And do you recall anything from what you read that your mother told you to read?
I never read a bit of it. Never read any of it. I threw the books back at them. I don't recall a single thing.
Got it. And was there a period where you said you would never smoke marijuana and then you ended up trying it?
Yes.
Can you tell me about that?
Yes, I was very much against marijuana. My father, being a psychologist, he explained to me how bad drugs are for you, and he drilled that into me from a very young age. So I thought I was never going to smoke marijuana. I had friends throughout my teenage years who were doing it all around me, and I never partook in it. I just drank, alcohol or beer or whatever when they were smoking. When I was about 20 years old, a friend convinced me, and he finally got through to me, and he did it in a bit of a trick where he said he was going to smoke it and then breathe it through a tube into my mouth. It would be secondhand, and I wasn't really smoking it. Really, I wanted to smoke, and one thing led to another. I was smoking marijuana, and there was no turning back from that. And I always knew for myself, thank God I wasn't around when my friends were doing heavier drugs, because I always just knew once I had it, if it was good, I wanted more. That was my life. If it was good, I wanted more. Why not always have the best, the ideal, perfect state all the time?
If you're saying that when you would, from drinking, you'd feel sick at a certain point, and then through smoking, you're able to reach the ideal state, not get sick, stay high. What was it like when you weren't high and you weren't drunk? If that is the ideal state.
Yeah, so I think looking back, now that I'm sober about 4 years, 5 months right now.
Amazing.
Don't have any mood or mind altering substances for that amount of time. No alcohol, no drugs since then. And I did get off, I was prescribed Ritalin. I was prescribed Valium towards the end. I had alcohol and I had marijuana, but so I always had something in my system, but I didn't think I was an addict because sometimes it was alcohol, sometimes it was pot, sometimes it was the other stuff. So I didn't think, I wasn't a daily drinker of alcohol. Sometimes, it would be a week and maybe 5 out of the 7 days I was drinking, but it wasn't every day. But there was always something inside of me that was removing me from myself. And so looking back, now that I'm sober, I'm able to realize.
Yeah, I just a real quick question. You said something that removes me from myself. I don't know what the language that you use, but what does that mean?
So now that I'm sober, I'm able to realize what was going on, why I was actually drinking, and because I work a program of recovery, I'm able to unearth the feelings that was going on that was leading me to drink to begin with. So like I said, it started out as fun and games, but really what was going on is when I drank, I felt free. I felt a release, a massive release. I could be anything. I could, there was all the pressures were gone. And now I understand what was happening. Because when I'm sober, I have to sit with my feelings, and I can't escape my feelings using a drug and alcohol. And I don't drink coffee anymore either. I try not to indulge in sugar. I try not to, because I want to be able to be with myself and not to run away from my feelings. And now that I've done that for such a long period of time, I realized that inside I just didn't feel good enough. I didn't feel good enough just being myself being the person that I am, Yosef Eichenblatt, I didn't feel that that was enough. I always felt that I needed to catch up and overcompensate and work extra hard just to be normal on the level of everybody else. I felt less than other people, and I was always comparing myself. I was either less than or better than. When I was better than, I felt comfortable. I was very comfortable, and I could be helping, and I could be giving, and I could be advising, and I could be mentoring. But when I was around people that I actually, felt less than, it was very uncomfortable for me, and constantly comparing myself to other people. I was constantly seeking approval from others, constantly people pleasing. And I wanted to always be liked by everybody all the time. I wanted everybody to like me all the time. It was insatiable desire to be liked and to be loved by everybody and constant approval. And, so the drugs helped me. The drugs, the alcohol, they all helped me to feel okay. And to party and to have fun and to enjoy life. But under all that, there was that as well. And that's the root of the drinking problem.
Oh, that's very vulnerable of you to share that. I appreciate it so much. Can you tell me how did it progress from you drinking, farbrengens, things like that, or going out partying, and then trying marijuana? Like what did it progress to? And if you can tell me a little bit about how did it progress?
Yeah. So Moshe, you said it's very vulnerable of me to share, and that's something that I've learned to do, being sober. But the reason why I'm doing this, just to make it clear, is there's no story that I feel that needs to be shared. I'm not doing this for me, is what I'm saying. Growing up, we had a lot of similar friends, and some of them were dying from drugs, and I saw friends of ours who were getting sober and turning their life around and leading amazing lives, and you were one of them. And I was struggling myself, and because you didn't hide and didn't keep it a secret, you didn't keep your journey a secret, I was able to hear through other friends, oh, Moishe is sober, Moishe is this, look what's happening. I was intrigued, and for the first time I was able to listen and hear, because it was somebody that I related to, somebody that I knew who had similar experiences. We spent lots of time hanging out together, and seeing your journey is what eventually led to me getting sober and turning my life around. So the reason why I'm sharing this and doing this podcast with you, the main reason is because I want people to know that first of all, there is a solution, and to hear it. None of this should be kept a secret. And a lot of times we're shy, or we're embarrassed, or we don't want to talk about it because, yes, it's very personal. But if we could break that stigma and be open, everybody has challenges in life. Everybody goes through stuff. If we're to stop hiding that, we're Chassidim, we're Jews, we're brothers, we're sisters. So why not share? Why not talk? Break that culture of going through problems and sort of keeping it under the rug, shoving it under the rug. But if I'm able to be brave enough to share my story, hopefully somebody else will find courage and be able to get help themselves if they're suffering from something that I went through, or if they know somebody who is.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Actually, as you're saying, I knew this for a fact, but as you're sharing it, I was literally had some tears in my eyes. I appreciate you saying that. But got to bring it back, because I did ask you a question.
Yes, you did.
What was the progression?
Okay. So I'm not going to get into all the nitty gritty details. I didn't see any consequences for my drinking throughout my single life. I got married at the age of 22, and I was very much focused on the shlichus life. That was it. I only wanted to date girls who wanted to do shlichus. I was very much hard line, and that was my life. So I eventually, a few years into marriage, we were living here in Sydney, and we were working in the school, and I decided I wanted to do this dream that I had, to open up a Chabad house in the old city of Jerusalem, to have a place where people can just come in, to basically bridge the gap between the inspiration that's experienced in Israel and the Kaisel and all that, and the yeshivas and the Chabad houses around the world. There's lots of Chabad houses for Israelis in India, but English speakers have that inspiration in Israel. So that was a dream of mine. My wife and I, we went out and we made that dream a reality. We moved to Israel. My brother and his wife had just got married there. We started to open this Chabad house, and it was great. It was great in the beginning. My brother eventually left just over a year in, and I was there by myself. And I remember when I was able to go fundraising with my brother, since I had him with me, I felt, all the confidence and all that, and I was able to do my job very well when I was with him. But when I wasn't with him, I was stuck with myself and all those feelings of not feeling good enough, and all those feelings of, so when I went out fundraising, yes, lots of times I would muster up a lot of courage and I would be very courageous, but sometimes I didn't. Sometimes I would just sit in crippling fear and anxiety. And sometimes I said, well, let's just drink and then go out to meet people. And that's what I did a lot of the time. And when I drank, I had all the courage in the world. I remember one time I met George Rohr at the Kinnis HaShluchim. I was able to go straight up to him and, tell him about our program. And then we communicated in email back and forth. I was able to be the person who I thought I was meant to be when I had alcohol in my system. And, I was able to do my job. I remember thinking in the back of my mind, is this sustainable? Is this going to catch up with me health-wise? But, everybody else around me seemed to be doing it, and it seemed okay. And, I didn't really have a choice because this is the path that I chose. So I didn't see any other option. So, eventually what ended up happening is, because of my drinking and my drugging, the more stressful I would get is the more I would drink and drug. And what ended up happening is it would hold me back. And I wasn't, instead of it being a help to me, it was actually crippling me. Because when I was under that influence, I was not able to act or be able to reach my potential and do the things that I needed to do. And
can you give me an example of something like of how the drinking gets in the way of that?
I'll give you I'll tell you a story. Okay. I used to go to Crown Heights from Israel to fundraise, right? I used to go around the world. I remember coming to Crown Heights, and a lot of times I'd go to Crown Heights and I'd see lots of old friends. One thing would lead to another. I would spend a lot of time drinking and smoking pot with old friends. Because I was anxious, because I was, had to fundraise, or just because I saw old friends. And what would happen is, on these trips, I wouldn't raise the money that I needed to. I didn't raise all, and I would come back and I would be at home. I'd come back with not enough money. And I'd be sad and I'd be depressed and beating myself up and be down on myself. And I would drink and drug more. And then I wouldn't do the jobs that I needed to do from there. And it would just be a big circle and a big cycle. And I started to identify this issue. And I was already in talks with you. And I had already, about my drinking, I was already exploring that maybe I am an alcoholic. And I had tried stopping. I remember you told me, oh, why don't you just try to stop for 2 weeks? See if you're an alcoholic. I said, oh yeah, sure, I can do that. So I remember it was almost a week in, and it was Friday night. And I made Kiddush. And once that wine touched my lips, I was like, oh, I told my wife, well, I did so well. I stopped for almost a week. I did so well, I don't need to do this anymore. So I ended up, I didn't finish the 2 weeks, but my mind was constantly playing tricks on me in that way. And I thought I was making decisions, but I wasn't. So I said, okay, in this trip to New York, I'm not going to drink. So I went to that trip to New York, and it was almost a week in. I only had a few little, I was doing pretty well. And Friday night came, and I had crazy financial stress, but I'm not drinking. And I was sitting Friday night by my dear cousin's house for a kid. We had a Friday night meal there, and there's beer, there's wine on the table, and all that, and I'm holding very strong, and I'm not drinking. And there's a constant battle in my head, and my whole body is battling.
What's the dialogue? I want to know what's going on in your head.
You can drink. You deserve to drink. Look how well you've done. It's just a little bit. It won't hurt. Drink. And sometimes it's just like white noise. It's it's beyond logic. And I was holding very, very strong, and there was some Brooklyn, and I remember there was a Brooklyn lager or something on the table. Moshe's like, "Oh, you want to try this?" It's like, it's really cool. It's a new brewery. I'm like, no, I'm not drinking. It's okay. No, thanks. And the next day, I had an opportunity to speak. Somebody arranged for me to speak in a shul in Crown Heights, where there was be potential for significant support from that community. And it was
so that night you didn't drink, right?
Well, up until this point. So I knew I needed the next day to be at this shul. So I needed to go to sleep on time. I needed to wake up on time so I could be fresh and speak on Shabbos in this shul and gain support that I needed. And so the meal's over, we're cleaning up, and there's one thing left on the table, this bottle of beer. And I'm looking at it. And I don't even know, the dialogue was gone. I just said, oh, Moshe, you know what? Actually, I want to taste that. Can I taste that? And it was kind of inconvenient for him because he just cleared up the table. All the cups were gone. We're about to leave. He was heading out to a Shalom Zacher of somebody. And he's like, yeah, sure. He gets me a cup. He opens it up. And I'm like, I have it. I was like, oh, yeah, really good. And it hit, the alcohol hit. And I said, actually, Moshe, you know what? Maybe I'm going to come with you to that Shalom Zacher. I said, okay, let's go. It was on the way to where I was staying. I go to the Shalom Zacher, and I end up drinking one beer and another and another and another and another till I can't count. And I end up getting very drunk. Moishe ended up leaving the Shalom Zacher, going home. See you tomorrow. I ended up making it home very late. I don't know what time. And I wake up the next morning at 1 p.m. with a splitting headache. And I missed the opportunity. And I'm like, shoot, I did it again. And I was just so down on myself. I ended up going that Shabbos. It was a ufruf for one of our friends who was also sober. And I see him there, and he's shining. I ended up pulling myself in with so much shame. And he's sitting at the table. He's shining. He's sober. There's bottles of alcohol all over the place. People are drunk. And there's a few of my sober friends who are just smiling. And I was broken. That's one story. That's an example of what happened, of how the alcohol got in the way. It's a pretty
What's great is you also explained to me. Yeah, but you also got to explain to me like what it's like when you try to stop. Yeah, and can you go back a second? Like that first time that you tried to stop in Israel, what was a day like in that week?
Some days were easier, some days were better. I don't remember so clearly, to be honest. But alcohol and drugs were a medicine for me. They were there to help me to get through, to do what I needed to do. I remember trying to put my kids to bed at night, and I was just full of anxiety, and I couldn't wait till I could go and drink or smoke pot, till they were asleep. And how horrible I felt. I felt so horrible in that moment, because these are the joys of my life, and I can't wait to get away from them. But I just had all that anxiety, and it was just like a contradiction. Thank God now I could sit and be present with my kids, but putting them to bed, and it's the most precious moments of my life. But there was that anxiety. It's so much anxiety and stress. But look, drinking was something that I did when I was happy, when I was sad, when there was a celebration, when there was stress. It wasn't just, oh, I'm stressed. I'm stressed all the time. I wasn't always stressed. I was a person who was accomplishing a lot. I started an organization, a Chabad house, which had thousands of people coming through. I was, I'd travel the world and speak in different shuls, and I was, on the outside, if you would look at me, everything was great, and to a certain degree, a lot of things were great, and I was very happy. I was leading a very idealistic life, but inside there was a lot that was crumbling, and my alcoholism was catching up with me, and I remember one day I was after shul in the morning, I was just sitting on the steps on the way to my house, and I just broke down crying. And I said, God, help me. I said, Hashem, help me. What's going on? I just couldn't figure out. I was always trying. I'm somebody who's very much into personal development. I'm always trying to grow, and I'm always trying to be the best that I can be, the best version of myself. I would do meditation. I would do different retreats and different self-help programs, and I was constantly working on myself. I became a life coach. I was a rabbi. I did lots of different courses, or maybe it was a CRM, maybe it was a management tool that was holding me back. But I was always trying to figure out what was wrong, or what could help me to be better. And I just broke down crying. I said, Hashem, help me. And it wasn't long after that where we had our conversation, which ultimately led to me. You said, Yosef, why don't you just try to stop drinking one day at a time? I says, one day I can do. 2 weeks was too much, but one day I can do. Today I'm not going to drink. And it was very important because I was in Florida for our friend's wedding, and I couldn't drink because I would miss the flights, and I was catching other international flights, and I didn't have money to buy new tickets. And I got through that day. And when I got through that day, what happened is I was sitting with friends of ours at the table the whole day. There was Farbrengens all around us, and there was alcohol around us. And we had such a fun time sitting with sober friends and other friends who were at the table but weren't alcoholic and weren't drinking alcoholically. And we just had so much fun. I was like, wow. It was the first time I realized you could have a fun time and not drink. I was like, whoa. And there was like that little glimmer of hope. And there was like this window. I felt there was a window of grace that I said, I jumped through it. I said, you know what? Hashem has offered me this opportunity, and I'm going to just keep on trying to go for it. And that was the beginning of my journey.
So what followed that first day? Meaning, like, what was the next day like? You took your flight. What did you do when you got on the plane and they were offering drinks?
There was nothing out of the ordinary. I felt like Hashem had given me a gift, that for the first time, there was the compulsion to drink was gone. For some reason, it was just gone. Like it wasn't a massive struggle. And I just felt like this window of grace that I this gift from God that it wasn't a battle. And I think it was part because I'd broken down and I cried to Hashem and asked him for help. And I said, God, I can't do this on my own. I need your help, is what I was essentially saying. And I was gifted this, saying, you don't try to conquer your whole life and try to fix everything all at once. Do one day at a time, is what you told me. And also, as in part, I was just so fed up with what was going on of being stuck in that cycle of addiction. I remember, you asked what did happen. I do have a very clear memory of, back in Israel, going to shul one morning. And I was, it was a few days, and I had tapered off of all the drugs and alcohol were finally clearing out of my system. And
1 second. This is you stopped everything that at that moment?
okay,
Meaning
so
the Valium and the thing?
actually I didn't. No, you're right. You're right. I stopped pot. I stopped alcohol. I still had Valium, and I was still on Ritalin, which were prescribed from doctors. But yes, those were
Yeah.
drugs that were in my system. Um, but I remember going into shul. I hadn't drunk for a few days. I hadn't, smoked anything for a few days. Um, there was, and there was like, it was like clear. I just saw everything more clearly. And I was like, whoa, like this is what it's like to be sober. And I just have that clear, it's like, and I didn't realize that it was, that I had been in a fog. I didn't realize that I was in that fog. But, things went on, and I remember speaking to you a few weeks later, and it's funny because yes, I started to tell all my friends in our kiddush club that we had a kiddush club, all these guys. It wasn't just Shabbos afternoon, but it was it was all the time. It was our group of friends, and I remember telling them I'm stopping to drink and I'm trying it out. And I remember when I started, I said I wanted to stop. It was like a challenge that I set for myself. I want to get to that same level of happiness that I get through the alcohol. I want to not be dependent on that. I want to get it out on my own. And I said to myself, I'm going through this challenge, and I'm going to see how this goes. Try to do that on my own. And my friends were very did not try to push me to drink, and they probably knew that it's probably better if I don't drink, even though they were drinking a ton. So I didn't get pressure from that. And I remember speaking to you, and you said, Yosef, maybe try to go to a meeting. I says, oh no, I'm not drinking, it's fine. And he said, yeah, but if you want to, it's not just about not drinking. It's also about living. It's not just about not drinking. It's also about being happy and being okay with yourself and just being happy with life. Something like that. And I said, okay. And I saw that you were happy with life and some other friends of ours. And I said, you know what, I'll try this thing out. And I went to a meeting. And in that meeting, I was looking for what was different, how I was not like those people. I'm not like them because of this, because of that. I'm different. But there was a few people that I really identified, and I saw that I had something very similar to what they had. Their drinking and their was different, and I related to it. But at the end of the meeting, they read something that was the 12 promises, and it caught my attention. And they talked about knowing a new peace, knowing peace and serenity, and all these things that happen when you work the 12 steps of this program, which have all come true in my life today. And that word peace caught my attention, and serenity caught my attention, because that's all I wanted. I just wanted some peace and serenity. I just wanted to be okay. At that state, my heart was jumping out of my chest, even on the Valium. I had so much anxiety. I was worried, and at times I would be very short of breath. I couldn't breathe. And I was just like, I want some peace. So that's what got me coming to another meeting. And, 4.5 years later, here I am.
Insane. There's a little piece of the story I wanted to ask you about, which, by the way, what you just said is really powerful, and it's truly humbling, and it's an honor to be part of your story. And so my question is like, did anybody notice it? Like, even towards the end, did your wife ever say anything like that? I don't know if you're okay answering that question, but like, what was that like?
My wife didn't really. Maybe a couple times she mentioned something, but I felt like I had so much stress and I had so much pressure in my life. I was entitled to drink. This was my gift. This was like Shabbos comes. This is my time to drink. I work so hard during the week. I could drink on Shabbos, and or the days is whatever. It's I work during the day. In the evening, I'm allowed to drink. Um, and yeah, Shabbos afternoon, I'd either be drunk or passed out on the couch. And she was very good. She's a very good wife. She let me. She wanted me. She bought my story that I need this space to let off some steam. She did mention sometimes that it did come up. Yes, that's the answer. In short, it did come up. And I remember with my brother, who I was working with in Abraham's tent. He mentioned it. It was getting in the way, but you could not tell me. I did not see it. I didn't believe it. I just thought this is my relief. Why do you want to take away this thing that's my escape, my relief? I deserve it.
It's amazing. It's amazing how that's really how we see it. Why are you taking away, like there's a you and that's taking away my relief? You're robbing me of something I really deserve. I just identify anyway. What was the first signs in your wife's life or from your surroundings where you saw that, wow, okay, this program is working?
Wow. So my wife wasn't happy in Israel, in our and I don't blame her at all. It was a very stressful situation. Financially, it was very hard. We had a very successful organization going on, and I was very, very devoted to it. And I put that before my family. So my wife and children were suffering, and she wasn't happy there. And I remember we came back to Sydney to visit her parents for Pesach, and our relationship was just breaking down. And we went to see a therapist or a counselor or whatever it was, and it was very clear that the path that we were heading down was not a sustainable one for our relationship. And I was at that point in time, I was trying to get sober. By the way, just to make it clear, it wasn't like I got sober straight away from that conversation that we had on the beach in Florida, where you said to stop drinking one day at a time. I wasn't able to stay sober from that, but that's what started the journey. So I was still dabbling with getting sober. I was going to meetings and here and there, and I was at a very broken point in my life. I was just very broken inside. I felt shattered, split in half, and I realized what I was doing didn't work. I have to try something new, and I decided to throw myself full force, just fully surrender myself to the program, the 12-step program and the meetings, and just do what they say, because it worked for you, it worked for other friends, and I give this a try. And I gave myself to it fully. And when I started working that program and started working the steps of that program, my wife saw a change in me, and she was, hey, who's this new guy? Who is this person? As opposed to where she was maybe afraid of me or wanting to maybe distance herself a bit from some of my behaviors. She was like, wow, hey, I like this guy. I want to hang out with him. And that's that. I remember that very clearly. We recommitted to, we're going to work out. Whatever it is, we're going to work it out. And we were both fully on board with that. So that was a big turning point.
Awesome. So can you tell me a little bit about what you do today in different situations, but I wanted to know, like, what do you do today if you were to go into a similar situation, like going to fundraise or going to say a speech where in the past you would have had to drink or had somebody to come with you and hold your hand?
I just want to go back to what I was saying before. What happened, what I was actually doing practically, I was working the program. And the program tells us to focus on the things we can change. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. So I accepted that I couldn't change my wife. The courage to change the things that I can, which is myself, and the wisdom to know the difference, and the wisdom to know that, and to know what I can change and what I can't change. And at that point where my wife saw, where I was talking about, where we had that turning point, was I decided to focus on myself. Started to focus on working and fixing myself. And I was in talks with different mashviim and shluchim about my situation. My wife's not happy. My wife wants to leave shlichus. She wants to leave Israel. And yeah, but this was my whole life. I couldn't comprehend that. I couldn't understand that. I dedicated my whole life to this cause. I even married my wife and dated people who only wanted to go in shlichus. Like, how can you tell me something else? And I remember a shliach telling me very, very strongly. He said, he was a shliach who was sent to Israel in the 70s. He's an older shliach, somebody who's very respected. And he was very angry with me. He was sitting with me and my wife. And he said, the Rebbe doesn't want you to be in shlichus right now. He says, Chabad lights the menorah inside the house because then we can go and light it outside. The house needs to be lit and full of light. You cannot give if your house is not full of light. You need to make sure that everything at home, everybody's happy. And you need to focus on that. Then you could go. He says, the Rebbe doesn't want you on shlichus right now. It's very strong. And I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to put my family first in every decision. And I'm going to just focus on, and we started to build a new life. We said, okay, we're leaving our life in Israel. We said, we're staying here in Australia. And I started a new career. I started an entirely new life from the ground up. I was in debt at that point. I had debt from shlichus. I only knew shlichus and being on that path. Didn't have any degrees or anything. My clothes, I was living out of a suitcase. All my stuff was in Israel. My whole house was in Israel. And I was going to go back and pack it up, but I ended up getting a job, and I'm in that same career now. But yeah, it was a massive change, and anyways, I don't know how we got there, but to answer your question, to go back to your question, do you want to ask your question again?
That's fine. I'm really happy that you just went there. That was very, I don't know. I just got super emotional. That's really powerful what he said. I hope he hears this and knows how important that conversation was. Yeah, my question was, what do you do today as opposed to what you did in the past? Like any example, but the first thing that came to mind was like, how do you go into scenarios that were similar to like the fundraising or going into uncomfortable situations? How do you go into them now without the need to drink?
So, look, there's no one quick answer for that question. I could share with you some experiences. It comes, first of all, any addict or any alcoholic who's gotten sober may probably tell you, or I'll tell you from my personal experience, I knew that I was powerless over alcohol. I could not stop doing it on my own, and I needed help. I needed Hashem's help. So I've shifted my life from one that's more reliant on myself to one that's more reliant on God. It's much more of a faith-based life that I try to live today. Because when I'm in my own will, in my own self-will, and relying on myself, it's very uncomfortable. And when I'm reliant on Hashem, everything is a lot more manageable. I need to just focus on what I'm doing right now. So getting sober, it's such a massive thing. It's such a change. But today, when you need to have a personality, I needed to have a personality change, um, because the person before only knew how to deal with his issues through drugs and alcohol, and I need to learn new ways. I needed to build new neurological pathways within my brain, um, to deal automatically, naturally, with situations that I didn't know how to deal with. So today, if I'm uncomfortable, or I'm feeling social anxiety, or stressed about something, I know I can pause. I can pause, and I can breathe. I can think about. I know that Hashem gives me breath. I can breathe in Hashem, breathe in Hashem into my lungs, and feel Hashem into my whole body. Feel that energy that's keeping me alive every single moment, and know that for Hashem, I'm more than enough. Hashem is giving me life. Hashem loves me. And for Hashem, I'm perfect. Hashem created me perfectly, just the way I need to be. Nothing in God's world happens by mistake. So where I am right now at this moment in time is exactly where I need to be. And I am exactly who I need to be. So all I need to do is just be. I don't need to do anything. I don't need to change anything. I just need to be. And do what Hashem wants me to do. Just being kind and doing the right thing. Being of service. The other way I can get out of my feelings of anxiety is by helping others. A lot of my beforehand, a lot of my decisions was based on self, was based on my own selfish wants, desires, and yeah. So I could change that.
So how does today's doing for others change? How's that different than the way you were doing for others in the past? In the past, you were totally devoted shliach, to like meeting thousands of people, like literally giving your life over. What's it different?
It's a good question. It's a very good question. I think the big difference is that I'm not so stuck to my plan of what I think needs to be done. I'm much more fluid, and I've surrendered my entire life to Hashem, so I'm able to go along with life as it unfolds. Obviously, I have plans and have goals and all these things, but I'm not stuck to do it, and not paranoid, I'm not worried if somebody else is going to fundraise for the next person, because I know Hashem has a plan that I'm going to get the money that I need to get. I'm not worried if somebody else gets a job, or if there's another person doing the same type of shlichus, or if there's another Chabad house near me, or if there's misnagdim doing that and fight. I don't need to worry about that, because there's God in the world, and He's in charge, and I need to just do my part, not focus on the things that I don't need, that I can't change. Just focus on myself and the things that I can change. So the service is from a much different place. It's not trying to control anything. It's not trying to do it. It's just doing what needs to be done now in the moment. So the service that I was doing at that point in time was tied to a lot of self-will and a lot of ego. Ego not necessarily meaning like, look at me, but it was that as well, but also ego meaning self.
Right. And it makes sense to say like ego meaning because I don't feel like I'm enough. Therefore, hey, look at me. I'm compensating for my deficiency. Look at me now while I'm okay and I'm normal.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't need to be,
Wow.
I don't need to be a shliach to be okay. God created me perfectly, just the way I need to be right now. I am who I am, and not everybody's gonna like me, and that's okay too. Focus more on liking myself and just making the right decisions and being okay with just living my life based on principles and making decisions based upon those principles, not about what other people think, not based on my fears.
What do you do today? Like on a whether it's a daily, weekly, like what is your support system look like today? Your support system, your support schedule?
Okay, well, it starts in the morning. Waking up straight away, Madani, focusing on that Hashem gave me life again. And I'm here for a purpose, and feeling that gratitude inside of me. And then I have some of my own personal prayers that I say after Modani. One's that serenity prayer that I said before. And there's some other prayers that I said, talk to Hashem. I say, God, I surrender my life and my will to you, to build with me, to do with me as you will. Relieve me from myself so that I can do your will. Take away my difficulties, take away all my challenges, so that victory over them could show all of your will and your love and your way of life. So I could be a vessel and a channel for your will in the world. That's what I ask Hashem when I wake up in the morning. And, when I've surrendered, so I've basically taken my mind and I've shifted it from my own will, say, okay, Hashem's will. Whatever happens, my kids are going to be fighting with each other or whatever's going to happen. Okay, that's part of Hashem's plan. I'm going to deal with it. Instead of getting angry or this and that, I'm going to deal with it as it comes. And then I write a gratitude list, at least 10 things that I'm grateful for in my life. And I try to meditate in the mornings as well. Meditation has been so huge in my life, massive. Because through meditation, I'm able to slow down, I'm able to see and come to these realizations. And when a challenging situation comes, I'm able to see it coming. I'm able to watch it coming. I'm able to react much better. Meditation has been huge. One of the greatest gifts of my life. I use an app. It's mindfulness meditation. It's not a spiritual. It's not avodah zarah or anything like that. It's purely being mindful. It's actually kavana. It's what kavana was supposed to be from the beginning. Just thinking about one thing at a time, slowing down the mind.
So Yosef, I wanted to ask you, like you talked about a bunch of different periods of life. I wanted to know if you can talk to either the people who are in your life or to yourself in your life at those times. And here are a few, just right off the top of my head. Like there is the time when you're 13 years old and somebody is giving you a drink. There is the time when you're in yeshiva and the Rosh Yeshiva is pushing drinks on you until you get sick. There is your brother and your wife when they notice that your drinking is causing
This question is too hard. This question is too hard. So many ways they could go. Because,
it's
yes.
Look, I'm not asking a could have, should have thing.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that if somebody sees something like this or is in that situation, what do you think they can know that will direct their actions to do differently? Or if there was something good, encourage it.
Okay, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, because one of the things is I don't regret the past. I don't regret the past, and I don't wish. But I guess one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast with you is because I didn't know that I was doing anything wrong. Alcohol was legal, it was encouraged, and I didn't see any problem with it. Everybody was encouraging me and telling me. So yeah, if I tell anything, I would tell to the adults and the people responsible in communities, the Rosh Yeshivas that were serving me alcohol, the adults and people in the shuls that were setting an example of a frum rabbi and a frum person drinking like somebody, not like a chassid, not like a frum person, drinking beyond the four that the Rebbe says, or just the whole environment of drinking being so acceptable. I'm not against alcohol. I don't drink because I'm an alcoholic. I can't drink. When I drink, I cannot determine what will happen. I cannot control how many I will drink once I drink. That's what makes me an alcoholic. So, but for other people who can drink, great, drink. It's fine. It's Hashem created it, but do it in the proper way. As long as it's not impacting your life in a negative way, and as long as you're able to have a few drinks and put it down, fine. But the culture and the environment where first of all, kids, teenagers, I don't like seeing teenagers, kids, from 13 to 21, just drinking alcohol like it's normal. Because especially when you're that young, the brain is still developing, and putting alcohol into the body is very damaging to the development of the brain. But just that the culture and the environment of drinking, to realize that, hey, maybe we need to think about drinking and how much we're drinking and who we're serving it to and how often we're drinking it, to just create some awareness. And that's part of why I'm even talking about this, because I feel when there are people in the community who are suffering, for me personally, I didn't realize that I was engaging in alcoholic behavior because I was just like everybody else. So I didn't realize that was a problem. That's why I was searching, trying to figure out, Hashem, help me. Because I'm not any different than anybody else. Everybody's doing the same thing.
What's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Definitely remember thinking that. We're going to kind of wrap up now, but I wanted to know if there's anything you wanted to share, like a message to a parent, to a teacher, to anybody struggling. What's a message?
My message would be, no matter how hard you think it is or how bad you think it is, it will pass. As long as wherever you are, you can get help. And there's people who have been in that situation before, however different you think it is. There's probably been somebody who's been through something similar. Reach out, get help. You can call me if you want. You can find me on Instagram. I'm not I'm not an influencer on Instagram, but it's an easy way to reach me. Yosef_Eich, I-K-E. Yosef Eichenblatt. I'm more than happy to help anybody who wants to talk or is struggling. I'm also a certified life coach. If anybody wants to do life coaching sessions with me or Moishe, highly recommended. We're not therapists. If you need therapy, go to therapists. But you can get help. And however bad or however hard you think it is, it can get better. But you need to be focusing on the solution and not the problem. And there's probably a 12-step program for you, whatever situation it is. And it's been the biggest joy of my life. With all the joy and all the peace and all the fun that I was looking for through alcohol and drugs, I have found through sobriety and through working the program and doing the 12 steps. It's absolutely changed my life. And my life looks nothing like it did before. Thank God, I'm still frum. I daven 3 times a day, but I live a lot lighter. I work in a bank here in Sydney, Australia, and my kids are happy. My wife is happy. Obviously, we have challenges like anybody else has, but my life is nothing like what it was before. I know peace. I know a new serenity, and I feel like today I have the ability and a chance to be the best version of myself because I'm sober and because I work this program. And the joy is infinite, and it keeps on getting better. That's just the truth. It just keeps on getting better. And I've also gone to therapy and done inner child work and worked through stuff. So life's a journey. Life's about constantly growing, and it just can constantly just get better. It really can. And it takes courage. It takes a lot of courage, but it's worth it.
Thank you, Yosef. I really appreciate you coming on this podcast with me. It's been so beautiful within this conversation. I've laughed. You've gotten me to tears, and I truly, truly pray and hope that the right person hears this. And I believe conversations like this need to be published, and they will change lives. So thank you,
Thank you, Moshe.
and thank you all for joining us. Have a great week. All the best. Thank you for listening. Please share your feedback by emailing us at podcast@neshamos.org. We hope you'll be back for the next episode of the Neshamos podcast. This is Moishe Chanan wishing you a healthy and a meaningful day.